Chapter 2. When Catherine met Rick. Or when the desire for freedom outweighs the fear of spiders. And in the next instant, Catherine plunged headlong into the mud. Usually, her quick reflexes would prevent a fall from tripping, but this attack was coordinated. Catherine became aware of Allison's presence at her right. The young woman stuck out her left foot as they crossed the mud pit, catching Catherine's right ankle, but the one who had pushed her from behind at the same time was unknown. Judging from the size of the hands she felt on her back and the force behind them, she reasoned Allison's partner was one of the males. Catherine looked up, mud dripping from her face. IPS recruits ran past her, stomping through the mud pit and moving on to the next obstacle in the course. An instructor stood nearby on dry ground. He made no effort to help Catherine up, nor did her fellow recruits who ran past, their footfalls splashing more mud onto her. "On your feet, Mercer!" the instructor shouted. Hope came up from behind, slogging through the mire, and stopped at her side. "Catherine, are you okay?" "Yes, don't stop for me." Hope reached out to Catherine and wiped the mud from her face. But what surprised Catherine was not that Hope stopped to help her, but that the girl broke into weeping. "Look what they did to you," Hope said as her tears fell to the mire. "I am not harmed, Hope," Catherine said, rising from the muck with Hope's assistance. "Please, stop crying and keep going." Catherine pressed on, her front side covered with mud from top to bottom. Hope, blonde, slightly heavy for her height, stayed at Catherine's side the best she could. But she soon tired, as before, and fell behind when they reached the logs. Catherine pulled away from Hope and was not seen until they had reached the finish line. Catherine received her time from the android timekeeper and was not surprised to learn that she had done poorly. The recruits stood in a group, chatted, and joked about their performances on the obstacle course. They looked at Catherine, who stood on the periphery, smiled, and spoke in low tones so as not to be overheard. Catherine sensed the usual gang was nearby. She did not need to look at them directly. Shawnee, Damon, Tyson, Megan, and Allison. While many of the recruits, including some of her instructors, had not received Catherine's presence well at Camp Torres, these five had become openly hostile toward her. The recruits had come from around the world, the solar system, and scattered worlds in the galactic community. They were mostly human, with a few aliens. Their ages ranged from mid-20s to late 40s. Already experienced in law enforcement, the recruits expected this type of training. Classroom education, marksmanship at the shooting range, and physical training, such as obstacle courses. But this experience was new to Catherine. She had come straight from her manufacturer, barely 3 weeks old, and already an equivalent college graduate. She was at Camp Torres for a mere few days when the resentment took root in her peers. They had spent years of hard work and dedication attaining their hierarchy and fought and struggled to earn acceptance into IPS. To see a 3-week-old android casually dropped onto their level was enough to trigger bitterness, jealousy, and even thoughts of physical violence in some. The phys ed instructor sent the group to the showers with the reminder that they were to assemble at the shooting range in 45 minutes. Jason, a young man in his late 20s and one of Catherine's allies, came to her side on the walk to the gym. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes. You see, I told ya, it's like high school. I never went to high school. They're just jealous of you, that's all. Don't let it bother you." "It doesn't." They came to the gym and separated into their locker rooms. "See you at 6, Jason said before turning to the men's lockers. 6 o'clock, yes." The women on Catherine's side were in various stages of undress, some already stripped down and headed for the showers. The sound of rushing water and chatter echoed through the tiled halls of the communal shower room. Catherine had not used these facilities until today, when the tripping incident on the obstacle course deemed it necessary. She left her muddy uniform on the bench, stepped into the showers, found an open spot under a shower head, and turned on the spigot. She ignored the stairs. As this was Catherine's first visit to the showers, the women in the steamy room were quick to notice the android when she entered. They stopped and gazed at her, looks of amazement on their faces. Some giggles slipped out, some whispers, many smiles. As Catherine washed the mud down the drain, she became aware that she had become the center of attention, much like when she was first activated, nude, and everyone staring. Under her spigot beside Catherine, Allison rubbed a body wash in a soaked cloth over one arm. "Hey, Catherine." Catherine brought her eyes up to Allison. "You better go back to that factory that made you," Allison said. "They forgot something." "I was made this way." Catherine turned her eyes away from Allison. "You sure you're in the right showers? 'Cause you ain't exactly a woman, you know." Some laughter broke out. The loudest came from Shawnee, a tall, dark-haired woman across from Allison. "Maybe you should go to the guys' showers," Shawnee said. Megan entered the showers from the lockers nude. In an aggressive move, she stepped right up to Catherine, inches away, face to face, seemingly to flaunt her body before her. "Yeah, robot," she said, the acid in her voice etching into Catherine's ears. "Maybe you should leave. Don't come back until you're a real woman." Catherine looked down at the body in front of her. Megan's weapon. She was using her skin, her parts to intimidate. Though Megan may have considered her breasts to be the perfect instruments of extortion, Catherine saw through her grandstanding. She turned off the water as Megan and the others watched, expecting a shower fight. "Excuse me." Catherine stepped around Megan, who threw her a smirk as she passed. Every eye watched her. Every woman in the shower room stopped washing and stared. "At least they gave her an ass," Shawnee said, breaking the tension as Catherine left the showers, now speaking loud and clear so the android could hear. The women resumed their showers as a quiet chatter peppered the sound of water striking the tiled floor, accompanied by a laugh or giggle. Catherine grabbed a towel from the shelf and dried herself down. She went to the bench to get her uniform, but stopped in her tracks and stared at the empty bench where she had left it. Gone. It must have been Megan. She was the last woman to enter the showers, appearing a few minutes after Catherine, giving her time to hide her uniform. Hope came to her side. She was already dressed and ready to head over to the shooting range. "Catherine, get dressed. We gotta go." "I can't." And that was how Catherine showed up at marksmanship, wrapped in a white towel and nothing else. She had intended to go through shooting practice, the entire session in the towel, just to send a message to Megan and her friends that despite their best efforts, she was not going anywhere and could not be easily intimidated. But the instructors had other plans for her. They asked Catherine for an explanation, and when she informed them of what had happened, queries were made, Megan was questioned, and staffers were sent to the gym. They returned a few minutes later with Catherine's uniform in hand. It had been given to one of the male recruits who had stashed it in the men's locker room, lying in plain sight on a shelf. Catherine made the easy guess that the male who had received the uniform from Megan was either Damon or Tyson. Back in her uniform, Catherine scored perfect hits on her targets at any distance, in both standing and prone positions. She left the shooting range still at the top of her class, fully aware that even though Megan had confessed to taking Catherine's uniform, the girl returned to practice without punishment, reprimand, or a warning from the instructors. Catherine sat alone by the window in the mess hall, a glass of water before her. Across the hall, not too far, she saw Allison, Tyson, and Shawnee at a table, the young man enjoying the attention of the two attractive women on either side. At one point, Catherine glanced in their direction and unintentionally made eye contact with Allison, who was looking back at her. She then turned her eyes to the window to watch the evening daylight on the nearby mountains, finding it of much more interest. Jason walked in and went to fill his tray with dinner that was being served that evening. Megan came in behind him a minute later. At the beverage counter, Catherine watched as Megan spoke a few words to Jason. He smiled, shook his head, and headed to the dining room floor as Megan joined her friends at their table. Jason sat with Catherine. "Hey, how's the water?" What did Megan want? Nothing. She was inviting me to their table. Why didn't you go? After what they did to you? I'm good right here, thanks. Catherine sipped her water as Jason ate. After a half hour of eating, sipping, and chit-chat, Jason picked up his tray and left. Catherine finished her water and watched the time on her internal clock. When she felt sufficient time had elapsed, Catherine rose and left. She strolled around the grounds, killing time. 5 minutes before 6, Catherine turned and headed to the apartments. The apartments were located across from Camp Torres, on the other side of Aliso Canyon Road. The recruits were housed there in perceived independence, a place to call home, when, in actuality, the recruits were owned by IPS, and in Catherine's case, literally. Catherine paused at the side of the road to take in the sight of the San Gabriel Mountains to the south, the sun lowering in the west, and the city of Acton, California, spread out before her. She missed the Pacific and the rolling surf, but the mountains this close to her were an impressive sight, she had to admit, and she had come to enjoy the occasional hike up the mountains in her free time. She crossed the road and stepped up to one of the apartments, stopping at the door. She placed her fingers on the door's locking mechanism and only had to impress her thoughts on the lock without saying the words. Door open. Catherine entered the modest apartment and crossed the living room when the door slid open. As she entered the bedroom, lights came up, but Catherine said, "Lights out." The lights faded. She went to the bed and sat beside Jason, who was waiting for her. Without a word, they took hold of each other and pressed their lips together in a series of long and passionate kisses. This little routine had been going on for about a week since Catherine had been tutoring Jason on the vast, overwhelming, and complicated space laws after classes. He had mentioned several times that he had a cousin who married an android and was embarrassed to admit that he had lost his virginity to an android in high school. But even to that day, he questioned the validity of the event, if sleeping with an AI counted. But no matter. He was with Catherine now, and felt compelled to drop one hint after another. Catherine got the hints. She stopped him in the middle of another hint when he told her about the time he had visited his cousin and his android wife, and they looked so happy together. "Jason," she said, "there's something about me you should know before you waste any more time pursuing me." "What? Was I giving you the impression that—" "I do not have a vagina." "Huh?" Jason stared back at her. "I cannot have sex. I was made that way, as requested by IPS. But she could kiss." She had a mouth with 2 lips, and a compromise was made. That was a completely new sensation, thought Catherine as she pulled back from her first kiss. A moment passed before she was convinced she liked the new feeling on her lips and wanted more. They met several times on the same pretense. Catherine came to tutor Jason, and the learning sessions would end up in long kissing episodes. The last few days, she had stayed at his apartment, laying in his bed and putting herself into sleep mode. They kept their relationship a secret from everyone at Camp Torres except Hope, who had befriended Catherine. "Jason and I have begun to kiss," Catherine said to Hope as they sat at a table in the mess hall. Hope nearly choked on her udon. "You what?" Hope's voice attracted the attention of several recruits nearby. She lowered the volume. "You're kissing Jason?" she asked in a loud whisper, leaning into Catherine. "Yes, for 3 days now." "You didn't tell me you had a boyfriend." "I was not aware he was my boyfriend." "You're kissing him." Hope glanced aside to make sure her voice was not reaching the ears of their neighbors. "Does that make him my boyfriend?" Hope smacked the side of her face and struggled for the right words. "Look, Jason's a synthy. You might not think you're his girlfriend, but that's exactly what you are to him." "A synthy?" "Someone who chases androids. They're obsessed with them. Open your eyes, girl. You got yourself a boyfriend. And from what I've seen, this is headed for a dead end." "What do you mean?" Catherine asked. We've all seen you in the showers. You ain't exactly altogether complete. You know what I mean? Catherine looked away. That again. Yes. Does he know you ain't got no hoo-ha? What's a... Never mind. Yes, I told him. Well, if you keep kissing him, he's gonna want more. It's a dead end, Catherine. This evening, Catherine had come to Jason's apartment with the memory of Megan inviting Jason to their table fresh in her mind, not so much the warning Hope had given her a few days before. She skipped the tutoring and went straight for the mouth. No complaints from Jason. He had been using his hands more than usual, exploring Catherine's body freely. On this particular evening, prompted by Catherine's direct approach, he roamed between her legs but did not receive the desired reaction from her, as one would expect from a human. Jason pulled back from the kiss. "What's wrong?" Catherine asked. "Nothing." "Do you wish to stop now?" Jason searched for the right words. "Listen, we have to either stop this altogether or step it up." "What do you mean?" "It's time we take this relationship to the next level." Catherine thought for a second. "Did I not tell you that I do not have a vagina?" Hope's advice echoed in her nets. "Yes, but there's other things you could do." "Like what?" Jason again searched for the right words, uncertain how to articulate his thoughts. A hint would not do. Just be direct. "Use your mouth," he said. As he let that sink in, he unfastened the buttons to his pants. Catherine did not need long to let it sink in, what he was requesting. 1 second. That was all the time she needed. Synapses fired in her neural nets. Connections were made. "No." "You can do it. Just get past the first time. It'll get easier after that." He went to pull his pants down. Catherine stopped him with a firm hand on his arm. "No. It's not who I am." "What do you mean?" "This is a job for a sex bot. I was not built for that purpose." "You don't have to be a sex bot. Anyone can—" "No, Jason." Catherine rose from the bed. "Perhaps we have lost sight of the purpose of my visits." Jason shot up in bed, refastening his buttons. "Catherine, wait." "I value our friendship, but if that is what you want, please get a sex bot." Okay, you don't have to do it. Just don't go." "I'm sorry, Jason." Catherine turned away and left his apartment with Hope's words echoing in her nets. "It's a dead end, Catherine.